Audio Jungle.
Conquest leader Gallus stared at the three-dimensional hologram of an unremarkable garden world, no different from the dozen other such planets he had conquered on his extensive and impressive resume. Named Earth by its lone sapient species, his invasion fleet currently remained orbiting its lone natural satellite. Any closer and his ships would be at risk from the crude but effective asteroid defense system of high-yield nuclear weaponry based on the southern frozen continent. The ruling legate will not be happy at the high casualties I have incurred, Gallus mused, scratching his jaw with a 4-digit manipulator. This human race has been quite a menace. He gestured to the command station in front of him, reviewing the series of events of the current invasion. For what felt like the 100th time, he watched the attack unfold, searching for any detail he might have overlooked. Gallus watched his ships warp into the star system, making a beeline for the main occupied world, while burning the few other colonized planets and moons clean of indigenous presence. The human greetings and eventually threats fell upon deaf ears. There would be no communication. His job was to wipe out the local residents to clear the way for the terraforms and colony ships. His fleet ran into their first snag once they had begun landing operations for their biotitans. Massive artificially created monsters, the biotitans were used to devastate a world's inhabitants without risking the lives of his soldiers. Expendable but extremely hard to kill, they automatically searched for population centers. No two titans were alike in order to reduce the possibility of any weakness being discovered and exploited. The first wave had landed when the humans finally struck back. Powerful fusion-tipped missiles ripped through his fleet, gutting most of his warships in nuclear fire. Reacting quickly, Gallus ordered a simultaneous screening strike of the world with every one of their radiation bombs, while dumping the rest of his Titans planetside. Unable to fully map out where the main human presence was, his reactionary attack had unfortunately missed most of the major cities. At least the humans will have to deal with the radiation. Gallus allowed himself a small gratification. Their pristine world wasn't so pristine anymore. He also felt pleased that their Grand Titan had landed safely in the ocean off the coast of what was locally called California. After a long journey trudging through the water, it was currently nearing the first city of its incursion. A hissing sound behind him drew his attention to the blast door of the command center. Conquest leader Gallus returned the salute of his second-in-command and took the datapad he offered. The humans were apparently evacuating civilians from every inhabited area around the planet's largest ocean. Strange considering only 3 titans were located in that hemisphere. Greetings, Conquest leader. We captured a high-ranking scientist during our last special operations raid. His subordinate paused before continuing. It was an action very uncharacteristic of his up-and-coming secondary. He has revealed some troubling information. What is it? Gallus asked, his voice calm and neutral. Truth be told, he felt a twinge of concern in the back of his mind. It took a lot to worry this particular subordinate. Perhaps you should hear it from him. I have the translator system up and running. Gallus ignored the breach of protocol, choosing instead to nod his head and follow his second-in-command to his flagship's brig. Their lone prisoner sat inside an unremarkable cell, his arms clasped in restraints above a central table. Gallus strode in, emanating a commanding aura, but it had no effect on the captive. The first thing he noticed was the exhaustion plastered on the human's face. This scientist had the appearance of someone who had recently gone through hell. It was something that Gallus had only witnessed before on the faces of Special Operations Forces. The darker-skinned human sneered and gestured with his chin at him. So you're the one in charge of this attack? He glared daggers through slanted eyes. His mouth curled up in a sneer surrounded by unshaved scruff. You don't know what doom you've brought upon yourself. Gallus refused to meet the creature's stare. We are advancing on all fronts. Your species has only brought down a small fraction of our titans, and at great cost for each one. The only doom is the one your civilization will face. Of all the reactions Gallus expected to see, laughter was probably the last on his list. In front of him, the human scientist leaned back in his seat, his eyes closed while he heaved with merriment. The conquest leader frowned at his charge, debating whether or not to order his second-in-command to enter the room and teach this inferior some respect. Before he could give such a command, the scientist calmed down enough to respond. "You do not understand." The human shook his head side to side. "You do not realize what you have awoken." His earlier dislike of the human faded away to be replaced with curiosity. "What do you mean? Is your species working on a superweapon?" Gallus leaned forward menacingly. "If you will not answer, my technicians will force it out of you." The scientist simply smiled. "No, we are not. There isn't enough time." "Then what are you talking about?" With a deep sigh, the human stared at the table. "It's the pollution." Gallus stared confusingly at his prisoner. "What do you mean?" "We spent years, decades cleaning up our mess." The human seemed to be speaking to no one now. "The damage we caused to Earth's ecosystem. It's what the price of progress and advancement was, and we did pay for it. We awoke terrible monsters that terrorized our populations." Until he woke up too. The prisoner shuddered faintly and met Gallus's eyes. "When we cleaned up, he went back to sleep. His rightful slumber. The reward for defending his domain. But now, with the pollution and radiation you poisoned our planet with, he has sensed an invader of his home." From behind the conquest leader, the interrogation room door slammed open and his second-in-command rushed in. "Sir, you must see this. Something is happening in the ocean." Another data pad was handed to him, this one broadcasting a live feed from the reconnaissance drones keeping tabs on the Grand Titan. On the screen, a large city took up much of the coast. Two tall steel towers at the mouth of the base stood proudly in the air, even though the bridge deck they once supported had long since been destroyed. What caught his attention though was the fact that his Titan wasn't razing the city. Instead, it stood near the shore, staring out at the water. Gallus finally noticed the thing that had his Titan's attention. A large island of jagged spikes swam slowly through the bay towards the city. "What is that thing?" His question went unanswered by his subordinate, who merely shook his head in fear. Pausing for a moment, the human leaned towards Gallus, a fierce grin on his face. "I do not believe there is a translation in your language. But we have a name for him." On the data pad, the water frothed and boiled as the massive spines rose out of the bay. Up and up it went, this new monster dwarfing the largest Titan Gallus's race had ever created. The beast reared up on its massive hind legs and stared down upon the intruder of his territory with a predatory gleam. Taking a deep breath, it opened its mouth wide and released a roar powerful enough to blow the auditory sensors of every single drone. "We call him Godzilla. And you didn't invade our world. You invaded his." Author's name and the link to original text in the description. Consider tapping the thumbs up and pressing the subscribe button if you enjoyed this video. And please join our channel. Thanks for watching.